Sure enough, they send him to the Green Bay Packers. What'd you make of the trade, Paul?
Stunning trade. And how many times do you see guys like this? These kinds of contracts, they get stalled, the negotiations are going, and then they stop, and then there's, the social media stuff happens, with scrubbing all this stuff, and then usually they get resolved. You don't see trades of players of this magnitude at this age.
Especially with the Dallas Cowboys. I was talking with this about Dondero. I don't know if you've been watching the Netflix documentary about the 90s Cowboys.
I just started. I watched the very first one. But yeah, I like what I've seen so far.
I mean, Jerry talks about how it's a show, and we've seen it time and time again with the contract negotiations with Dallas, where they get strung out and he takes forever, and then all of a sudden they ultimately come to an agreement. So the fact that Micah Parsons, on top of all this, actually gets dealt from Dallas, a team that loves the stars, extra stunning. Sorry to cut you off. Continue.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, that's exactly how I feel about it. And you just don't see guys of this magnitude at this stage of their careers. You see some older guys, that you move on and, like the Belichick adage of, we're going to cut ties maybe a year too early. We know he's still a good player.
Yep.
Even like Tyreek Hill, when he leaves Kansas City. Still a good player.
Mm-hmm.
But this guy, was he 25?
26 years
26? I mean, he's in the absolute prime of his career. He's, one of the handful best player. I mean, top 10 player in the league, top 5 player in the league, certainly top 5 defensive player in the league.
No doubt.
You just don't see guys like this get traded, and then that's a big time contract too, from Green Bay. I think it was like 134 guaranteed, something like that.
134 guaranteed. I think 188 overall.
188 overall. I mean,
Yep.
We're talking, just the guarantee part. You're talking like 33, 34 million a year.
It's a ton of money. Yeah.
Over that, a 4-year contract. So just an absolute stunning deal right on the eve of the season.
Who do you like the deal for more? Who do you think won this deal, Packers or Cowboys?
So I would say the Packers. I think the Packers are a team that's really good. I don't necessarily think of them as a title contender. This might be the kind of move that you make that can push you in that direction. Now, a lot's going to depend on Jordan Love. We know that. But the Packers are a really good team that got a lot better with this guy. So I would say the Packers won.
Well, the Cowboys have certainly been getting dragged on social media for this move. And Micah Parsons, obviously the biggest name in this trade. Like you said, top 5 player on the defensive side, entering his prime, not even in his prime. At this point, I'm not going to defend the way that Jerry Jones handled this situation. I'm not going to defend the way that it all took place or the timing of the deal, because you can certainly make the argument that if you wanted to maximize the value, you get this done prior to the draft, no question. But overall, when you kind of look at what normally takes place when a team trades multiple first-round picks for a player, very rarely is it a slam dunk for the team that gets that elite player on the other side.
And I wouldn't say it's a slam dunk. I still think Green Bay get an edge, but I think that what Jerry Jones is probably thinking is how you are sort of skirting around. Go back to the documentary. What do you think this is for Jerry Jones?
The Herschel Walker trade 2.0.
Yep. Absolutely. That's what he thinks. I just don't think they got as many picks. It's two ones, right?
Yep.
And I'm not saying that's nothing. I mean, I would have thought if Parsons was going to move, it was going to be multiple first-round picks. I think we actually talked about this, last Friday. Never in my mind that I think
it's actually going to take place.
Going to happen. But, yeah, I mean, I think it's certainly a fair price that Green Bay took. But now, in order for you to really win this trade, the part of the Herschel Walker deal that people kind of miss is just how good the players were that Dallas drafted, that Jimmy Johnson acquired with those picks.
Paul, I'm so glad you brought this up, because this really, and I'm going to go through some of the trades that have happened in recent years with multiple first-round picks, because it does give you the foundation. Hell, we even saw this, by the way, with the Boston Celtics. When you talk about the trade with the Nets, everyone talks about what a slam dunk trade, and it was. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, the ammunition to go out and get Kyrie Irving for sure. But the key to that was actually drafting Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum.
Correct.
Right?
What if you took Markelle Fultz?
Thank you. We look at that trade completely differently.
Right. See, now to me, the trade is the same, but it's not remembered the way it is if you don't take Jaylen Brown instead and Jason Tatum instead.
You have to nail the picks that were given to you, and you have to actually use that ammunition to lay the foundation. But what this trade does do for the Dallas Cowboys is give you an opportunity here to lay a foundation moving forward for a team that, do you think the Cowboys were actually Super Bowl contenders going into this year?
So no, I would put Dallas in a similar spot as Green Bay. I think if healthy, and if everything is healthy for Dallas, I think they're a good team. But no, I don't look at them as Philadelphia or even Detroit. I think those teams are ahead of them. And, I'm going to be curious to see what San Francisco looks like, fully healthy, back whole. I would put teams like Dallas a notch below that, but certainly a playoff-worthy team.
So Bill Barnwell wrote about this trade over on ESPN.com. And he laid out just the financial commitment that you would be making for. And now, again, this is one where you really, I don't know how much credit you can give Jerry Jones for this if you are on the side of liking this deal for the Dallas Cowboys, because Jerry Jones did think that he had a handshake agreement with Micah Parsons in April for a contract, right? So his initial plan was to bring him back. But essentially, Barnwell writes about how if you were going to make this commitment with Micah Parsons, you were going to have 3 players in CeeDee Lamb, Dak Prescott, and Micah Parsons combining for an average of $141 million per year on your salary cap. That's 3 players eating a substantial piece, and now trying to build the rest of your roster around those 3 guys. Can you actually build a Super Bowl contender? Now you can debate whether or not.
The short answer to that is yes, you can. It just it takes a little creativity, but yes, you can.
And the other part of that, too, I would say is, all right, well, yes, there's a ton of money committed to those 3 players, but is Micah Parsons the one of those 3 players that you would get rid of? I would argue that you probably would want to move on from another one of those players rather than Micah Parsons. Either way, what this does do is free up a ton of cap space. So you not only get the picks, but you also get the ammunition in terms of going out and be able to free up the cap space to go add other players to your roster. And the trade that keeps getting brought up with this Micah Parsons trade is the Khalil Mack trade that the Bears did. I cleaned some of this up because if you actually do the web and try to connect the dots, you look like the Charlie Day meme where he's got all the strings attached because there's 47 different permutations. But essentially, Bears received Khalil Mack and a second-round pick, which turned into Cole Kmet, along with a 7th-rounder. The Raiders received a 2019 first-round pick, which wound up being Josh Jacobs, a 2020 first-round pick, which they absolutely blew, and Damon Arnett ended up playing 9 games, I think, and then got cut, and then they had the 81st pick in Brian Edwards. So, again, you got the ammunition with the 2 first-round picks, but you didn't follow through.
Yeah, does it say how old Khalil Mack was when that?
He was a year older. He was 27.
So only 1 year older?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it also freed up a ton of space for them to lay down the foundation in free agency and through trade. So with that cap space that they would have had to use for Khalil Mack, they went out and they traded for Antonio Brown, Trent Brown, and Tyrell Williams. So on paper, what the Raiders thought they were doing was trading Khalil Mack and bringing in 3 impact players through free agency and trade for your offense and drafting 2 first-round picks that were going to be foundational pieces on offense and defense. Now, none of those players ended up working out, so this goes back to actually cashing in. But it does give you the flexibility moving forward to kind of do something different if you want to go in a different direction.
It does. And, what it kind of reminds me of is a little of Tony's old adage of, the horses and ponies, right? I mean, you got Khalil Mack, and the idea is, we'll get 3 or 4 good players instead of the one great one, and we'll be better off. But it's really hard to do that. And I think that's the underrated part of what Jimmy Johnson did with the Herschel Walker trade.
No doubt.
And I don't have all the names in front of me, but they really created the foundation, the nucleus of their Super Bowl teams were drafted in those years with, the Woodsons and the Marylands and those guys.
Emmitt Smith, go down the list of all the players they brought in.
That's how they got all of those players was through shrewd drafts in the early 90s.
So, really what it comes down to, and you go through, again, the most recent trades that have taken, Jamal Adams, traded from the Seahawks, from the Jets, turned into Elijah Vera Tucker and Garrett Wilson.
So now that was a terrible trade. Seriously,
it was
a terrible trade by Seattle the day it was made. There was nobody that was sitting there saying that Jamal Adams was worth two
first-round picks. The other one, Dolphins, sending Laramie Tunsil to the Texans for 2 first-round picks. That wound up turning into Jalen Waddle, Javon Holland, and Tyreek Hill for Miami.
Yeah, I hate the inclusion of the Tyreek Hill part because it's really not the same. But that's what everybody does. So I'm surprised you had time this morning to read that Bill Barnwell piece. You gotta carve out a good part of your day if you're gonna
I skimmed it.
If you're gonna consistently read.
I tried to find a paragraph that I could use, and then I bailed.
Incredibly detailed. Bill Barnwell is my go-to when I want to really sort of
fall asleep at night.
No, when I want to really like if you have a thing like how did Washington get so good from one year to the next, beyond the obvious of Jaden Daniels?
Deep dive.
Bill Barnwell's your guy.
Yeah. He's
going to give you every detail of that. It's just, I rarely have enough time to read it. I mean, generally they're 5,000-word treatises.
This one certainly was as well. Yeah, so we're picking our way through, but we poached that one paragraph for this segment. 617-779-0985. I will say Jerry Jones put on a masterclass press conference last night bringing up this trade. Also talked about how the teams that were in on this deal were going to have to give up multiple picks, have the cap space, and a defensive tackle that they would want. You know what team checks one of those boxes, and all those boxes actually, Paul? Be the New England Patriots.
What did you want the Patriots to do here?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I don't think the Cowboys got as fleeced as everyone is making it sound like. I really don't. I think there is – now, you have to execute for sure, but it does give you the building blocks moving forward to try to build a foundation around a team that wasn't a Super Bowl contender, I don't think.
I would agree that I don't think they got fleeced. I think you don't give away talents in the prime of their career, really for any prime. I think you work hard in the draft to get a player like Micah Parsons, and then to deal him for 2 first-round picks and hope that you get another Micah Parsons, to me, is kind of spinning your wheels.
So when you talk about landing spots, because the Cowboys mismanaged it in terms of trading him at this point in the season, there were very limited teams that had the cap space to actually absorb a Micah Parsons and also a Michael or Micah. Is it Michael or Micah?
Made a commitment to Michael this spring.
Jeez, sorry, Jerry. Micah Parsons. Patriots are one of them. Patriots had the cap space to pull this off. You have the picks. And the Cowboys also wanted to stop the run, so you needed a defensive tackle, whether that was Christian Barmore, Milton Williams. Go down the list. Would you have made that deal if the Cowboys called you and said 2 first-round picks and Christian Barmore for Micah Parsons, and you have to pay him and make him the highest-paid non-defensive player in the league?
So, yeah, I would have, but that's a lot. That's a lot to give up. But the whole cap space thing, to me, is secondary to the money. Like, that's a lot of money. And not every team is just going to be willing to, I give Green Bay credit. That's a big contract. And if it's 130-plus guaranteed, then that's pretty real. Forget the 188, okay? But I think it's 136 or something guaranteed. That's a lot of guaranteed money. And not every team would be willing to do that. I don't know. Do you want to give up those resources and that money? Well, that makes it a little bit of a more difficult. Now, with Barmore, I think Barmore's a terrific player. He's got a big contract, too. So you're giving up that contract, which helps you financially if you want to take on the money back. I think Barmore has some uncertainty around him with, the obvious health situation with his blood clots. Throughout the summer, he was sort of managed, I would say. He was out there every day. We saw him every day at practice. But some days during team periods, he participated. Some days he didn't. I think they managed him a little bit. I don't know if that was because of the blood clots or some other health reason, or if they're just trying to make sure that they keep him fresh for the season. But when Barmore's right, he's a really, really disruptive player.
What are your expectations for him and Williams coming into this year for the Patriots?
I think that will be a strength definitely in passing situations. I'm a little concerned in running situations. I think they're a little bit undersized, but Milton Williams more so. I think you can have a guy like Tonga out there probably with them or instead of one of them to kind of, stop on early down, stop the run. But I think those two guys would be a strength of the defense.
It's $120 million fully guaranteed for the Parsons contract. So like you said, that is a
120
fully guaranteed.
That's a lot.
At signing, makes Parsons the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history with this contract.
Nothing gets by me, Tim. I knew that was a lot.
So $120 million is a lot. We'll hit the breaking news sounder coming up in just a bit.
Yes.
But on top of that, you're also giving up the 2 first-round picks. It's hard.
That's a lot.
As good as Micah Parsons is, it's going to be hard to live up to that trade from the simple fact of what you're paying him market value, and on top of that, giving up those assets in the draft. That's a huge price to pay if you're the Packers.
And in that league, I don't know what the percentage is, but there's a significant percentage chance that the player ends up getting hurt and you lose him, as Jerry, pointed out in the offseason, how many games he played last year? Yeah. Like, he's been pretty durable, but you never know when all of a sudden a guy who's been pretty durable misses time.
We go back to the Khalil Mack trades, but had a healthy first year with the Bears, and then injuries, he's out the door by year 4 there. So, again, it's tough to compare players, but like you said, especially at that position too, we'll see. They're huge expectations. And look, a huge swing for the Packers. I like that deal. I like going all in for it. I don't think the Cowboys should be getting ripped as badly as they are right now.
I think that they're getting ripped more so for all the missteps along the way. It didn't have to come to this.
No.
They could have probably gotten something done that was a little bit more amenable for both sides and didn't have to get as acrimonious as it did. And I think Jerry sort of fanned the flames on that. It's funny, you were talking about, like, is it Michael or Micah? And you kind of listen to Jerry and you're like, he sounds like an older man. But, like, you go back and you watch the documentary and you see his, like, introductory press conference when he was obviously a much younger man, and he kind of sounds the same.
He does sound the same.
He was rambling all over the place.
And I'll say this, too. He can get ripped on social media, all that stuff. Based on what he went through when he first took over the Cowboys, it is not going to impact him. They're throwing parades for Tom Landry, and he's totally fine with blowing him out and bringing in his guys. So, no, that's not going to impact his decision-making, that's for sure.